I'm your friendly ex-Muslim. Today we're going to be discussing the problem with reforming Islam. I spoke to Armin Nawabi, our favorite Iranian ex-Muslim, about the problem with reforming Islam. He shares his personal story about how in Iran, the beautiful Persian culture was replaced with drab Islamic celebrations and wailing and ceremonies. He does, however, acknowledge that Eid, the Muslim celebration that happens twice a year, should still happen regardless of whether you believe in Islam or not. Listen to his thoughts and tell me what you think.
So I do want to talk about reform versus, like, given all we talked about, given the usefulness of looking at religion as just pure mythology and stories and history and all of that. I do want to also talk about the utility of religion when it comes to its traditions if you strip away the belief from it. Okay. And I want to introduce you to the process of secularization of religion instead of reforming religion. And I think these are the complete opposite of each other, because you know that I'm very much against reforming Islam. Okay. But I'm very much this other thing that I'm calling secularization of religion rather than reforming of religion, which does the exact polar opposite of reforming it. Okay. So I think what makes a religion harmful is the belief part, right? If you don't actually believe, like, for example, think about Christmas, okay? I don't think there's anything wrong with atheists participating in Christmas, okay? Because what makes a religion harmful is not the traditions. If you actually think that Jesus actually was like crucified and that's a real story, believe that the stories, the commandments in the Bible are actually commandments by a divine entity, the belief in absurdities makes you commit like atrocities, as Voltaire would say, right? But if you strip away the belief, there's nothing wrong with the tradition. You can maintain the tradition if you take the baby. So the problem with reform, okay, is the reform is try to preserve the belief, okay. And the reason why I'm against reform is like, hey, if we just get these people to do something else, we could keep belief in the supernatural and the superstitious belief and the divine and revelation there, and just get them to behave better. Okay. I have a problem with faith as a whole. I think like you're not treating the root cause of all this problem. The root cause of this problem is having the wrong methodology to come up with conclusions, right? If you don't provide the people with tools to come up the proper tools to come up with conclusions, there's no guarantee of what conclusions they're going to come up with. You could try to replace these conclusions with other conclusions, but their bullshit radar is not working. Okay, so the faith itself is at the root that you need to deal with. So one of the main reasons why I'm against Islamic reform is because you're like cutting off the branches and leaving the root of all the problem there, right?
But like, what about reforming in the sense of like, let's say banning FGM? Some people consider FGM an Islamic thing. Some people consider it's not Islamic, but it's obviously Islamic to some extent, right? What do you think? Wouldn't that be a reform? Wouldn't it be a good thing to ban it, or even like banning child marriage, even though Muhammad supposedly married a child? Isn't that reform? Isn't that a good thing?
No, they are good thing, but they're not reform, because when we're talking about reform, we're talking about changing an ideology. Okay, I do believe those laws should be there, but that's not reforming people's opinions. That's just forcing them not to do something harmful. I do think those laws should be there, but when we're talking about activism as a reforming, we're talking about whether or not, what are we making people think? Okay, so those laws should be there, but that's not part of reform. The process of secularization, I think it's actually useful, okay, because one of the things that and this is something I had a hard time understanding, and now I understand it. And the reason why I had a hard time understanding is, one, because I grew up in Iran, and second, because I'm an ex-Shia, right? So like when I left, my experience with people leaving religion is that I don't want anything to do with this ever again in my entire life. This was a horrible experience. I'm glad that I'm done with it, okay? Because first of all, in Iran, most people who leave Islam are because they're sick and tired of Islam. They don't want, like, they think that this is like this thing has ruined their lives, right? And also because Shia Islam doesn't have anything beautiful. I mean, Shia Islam is just like the traditions and the celebration. This is about like crying, burning black, hitting yourself. Like we grew up just comparing like Iranian traditional festivals, which was about life and colors and beauty. Like that was ancient Persian culture, and then we compared it to Islamic culture. It was about cry, like this was dancing and music and colors, and then we compared it to Islamic tradition, which was Shia, and it was about hitting yourself and crying, and everything is black, and singing these things in Arabic in a very sad way that this is like we don't even understand what it's about. So like when you leave that, and people are like, but some people have this emotional attachment and they can't leave it. I'm like, what? Who? What? I couldn't understand that, right? But I shouldn't judge what is the best way to leave Islam based on my personal experience, because a lot of people have different experiences. A lot of people, after many years of activism, I came to understand that it's not just about rationally explaining to people like, look, there's no evidence for this. These are claims. How do you believe things? A lot of it is like, this is my people. This is my community. I want to go to Eid. I want to eat. Like I want to do a fasting with my family. I want to listen to this music. This is our tradition. This is what makes me me. This is what makes me part of these people who I love. These are my childhood memories. I can say no to all of this, right? So one thing that we could suggest is that you don't have to. All right. We can suggest the idea of not believing in bullshit doesn't mean that you can't participate in Islamic Eid, right? Just like when people in Christian countries who leave Christianity, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to celebrate Christmas.
Yeah, and just so people don't know, he's saying Islamic Eid, meaning the Eid is the celebration that happens twice a year after Ramadan and after Hajj. It's like the Christmas of Muslims.
And you could participate in those festive if you want to. You could maintain you could do some of the traditions if that's what connects you, if that's your childhood memory, if that's what connects you to the community, if that's what connects you to the family. Especially like you could see that a lot in Jewish culture, right? So a lot of atheist Jews are completely still involved in Jewish culture, right?
Yeah.
Like they seem to be living very, very religious lives. And then you ask them, do you believe in God? And they're like, hell no, are you crazy? And you're like, do you believe any of these stories are real? Like, of course they're not. They're like, they're myths. They're myths, I'm like, okay, but why are you doing the prayer? And this is like, well, that's my culture. Right. And I think there's honestly nothing wrong with that, because how could a religion be harmful? How could you convince people to go do harmful things if you think these are just stories? If you don't think that there's a God that commanding you, you could just stop at the things that makes you do harmful things and just do the things that you find beautiful. Just like, for example, when my mom was dying from cancer, when she was in the hospital, right?
Yeah.
She died as an atheist, right? She became an atheist, but she was in a lot of pain, and I went to her, right? I went to him, and I saw like she was taking her headphone off, and she seemed to try to be hiding something from me. And I was like, what are you listening to? And she's like, I'm shy to tell you, but I'm listening to the azan, which is the Islamic call to prayer. Like, she's like, Armin, I know. She was like, Armin, I know this is bullshit. And this is right before she died, like just a few weeks before she died. She's like, Armin, I know this is bullshit, but it's really helping me with my pain. I was like, well, listen to it. Why would you be ashamed? If it's helping you with your pain, listen to it. Like, I could not understand why she was embarrassed that she was listening to the Islamic call to prayer. Like, not even, like, I would tell you, I'm going to admit something to you. I find Sufi zikr, the zikr that Sufis do, they go, Allah. Allah. I actually kind of like that. I listened to that. I was like, okay, I'm like listening to it. I was like, I can see why people think that something divine is touching them. Like, I can see why people think that they're doing something heavenly when they're listening to it. Like, this is making me feel things that I didn't know it was possible.
You are a closeted Muslim after all. Aha! You slipped your mask, buddy. We caught you.
I also see that.
Exposed.
I also feel the same thing. I listen to Christian music, and I feel like that's kind of interesting.
Exposed. Yeah, don't try to weasel out of it by saying you listen to Christian music now. You said it already. I'm going to change the title of this video to Armin Exposed.
Armin Exposed.
Muslim detected.
Let me tell you more. I look at certain mosques. And I'm like, that is gorgeous. That is gorgeous. Like, you can't tell me that it's not gorgeous. Like, I look at it, I'm like, this is peak art. Like look at this, right? I look at calligraphy, Islamic Arabic calligraphy, and I want to hang that in my living room. I'm like, yeah,
I
that's freaking beautiful. I want to hang that in
have
my
this
living room, right?
I have this weird, it's not really weird, but these negative associations with Islamic art because of what it
Yeah,
used to represent to
same.
me. So I don't like it. I
I
don't like
used
it.
to.
I don't want it in my house. Let's put it like that.
Like, look at this. This is
Yeah.
in Iran, for example.
Oh,
As a
yeah,
kid, I would look at this and I would want to puke
yeah.
because because of its association with Islam, right?
Oh, as a kid, you mean when you were after you left Islam? You mean?
Well, I mean, I went through hating Islam and then becoming very Muslim
Oh,
and then leaving it again. But as
okay,
like this represented conservatism to me. Like all of this is
okay.
like backwardness to me. But
I
look,
see.
but I look at it now. I'm like, now that I'm distant from it, and I understand that if your life is being affected by Islam, I'm not saying you should like this. I'm not saying that, because I get to now feel something about this because I'm so distant from it that I'm not being harmed by it, right? So
Yeah,
if you have this negative association with Islamic because you're so directly being harmed by it, if you still have that negative association, that is not wrong. Like
yeah,
that's how you feel. But I'm just saying, if you look at this and you think like this is beautiful,
yeah.
that is also not wrong. You know what I mean? Like if you
So
look
this,
at this,
yeah,
if you look at this
yeah,
and you say like that is gorgeous, right?
yeah,
There's nothing wrong with that. You're not endorsing Islam if you
yeah.
enjoy this, right?
Yeah, so this is
That-
actually a sign of mental maturity that you're actually mentioning here, which is you are now able to rationally acknowledge beautiful things that are associated with Islam. There's a certain period in every ex-Muslim's life where they're not able to do that because they're so, like I just said, like I don't like. I mean, I don't want it in my house. I'm not gonna say it's ugly or something. That's weird. That'd be irrational to say that. But yeah, this is a sign of mental maturity that you're able to say, I understand why some people feel this way, but these things are beautiful. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. Do subscribe for more from your friendly ex-Muslim. This is your friendly ex-Muslim Abdullah Samir signing out.